Let's go live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the beautiful fruited plains of the internet, and then we can go ahead and get started. Let's make sure we're alive and well on YouTube, because YouTube always takes a little bit of time to get started. Let's make sure, hello, come on YouTube, are you ready? We're also on Rumble and Twitch and Facebook, but looks like YouTube's ready to rock and roll, so we can go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today, because we've got a lot to get into. We're going to be talking about Afghanistan. We've left a lot of things behind there, but today we're talking about the dogs. A lot of dogs got left over there, and so we're going to be checking in with the Kabul Small Animal Rescue Center. Kind of a wild story going on here about a woman from Tennessee who went over there, has about 130 dogs or so, trying to get them out of the country. U.S. military kind of said, sorry, we can't do that because we've got policies in place. And so we're going to break that story down. We're going to hear about what the Pentagon has to say about that, check in with the Kabul Small Animal Rescue Society, and see what that story looks like, because there's a lot of leftover issues to deal with in Afghanistan. So we're going to spend some time on that. In the second segment, we're going to change gears and talk about what's going on with the January 6th Select Committee. Bennie Thompson, remember him? We talked about him last week. He was the guy who drafted that letter, basically demanding everything from the National Archivist that related to his political enemies. Well, he's back with a new letter. He told us there was going to be more coming, and there is. You see in this story bouncing around that the January 6th Select Committee, the Democrats out of the House of Representatives, they want to go and get the phone records and the text messages and the emails and anything from all of the telecom companies of all their political opponents. So that's very convenient that they're going to be using January 6th as an excuse to go after their enemies. But that is happening. And so we have a new letter from Bennie Thompson. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to see what the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, has to say about this, because he is a little bit upset about this. He's pretty angry. He's saying, whoa, hold on a minute. You're going to look at my text messages? Uh-oh. And so he's very upset about this. Wonder if there's a reason for that. So we'll spend some time on that. And then our last segment, abortion. Since there's not enough to duke it out with each other over, we're going to talk about abortions today. So abortion is now prohibited to some degree in Texas. There was a Texas law, SB 8, that went into effect yesterday at 12:01, or today, this morning at 12:01 a.m., and now it is in effect. The Supreme Court, a lot of the pro-abortion crowd were waiting for the Supreme Court to, at the last minute, come in and put a stop to this new law that is going to prohibit women from getting abortions about after 6 weeks after they are pregnant. And so we're going to see what is going on here, take a look at some of the abortion clinics. They're already turning women away, and the abortion advocates are very upset about this. And so we're going to see how this is going to unfold in the upcoming year. Should get a decision on this from the Supreme Court in 2022. But for now, that's the law in Texas. So a lot of the anti-abortion advocates are very happy about that. We've got a lot to get into. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where people are chatting away over there. We've got Paw Form EP. We have Ryan Berry. No, that's over on YouTube. Over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, we've got, let's see, we've got BT Thorne in the house. We've got News Now Wyoming, Paula MK. We've got Want to Know, Radice, Cats 59. We got Tweaks in the house, Soul Viking, Jeremy Matrita, JM Shanahan. We got a full crew today. Aunt Deb, I'm Not Gas, and many others are just having a great time over there watching thewatchers.locals.com. Lively chat today. Love that. Over on YouTube, shout outs to Lean J. We've got Sausen Academy of Egyptian Dance. We've got Anything Goes. We have Vijaya. We have Playin' Hooky and many others. If you are supporting us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and I saw somebody said that they're going to take a shot every time I say locals.com, locals.com, going to get ripped in the chat over there. So that's going to be fun. But if you're a supporter at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, well, then you can use this form, ask a question. If you could keep the questions in order with the segments, that just helps me go streamlined through them, and then we can make sure we can get to as many as we can. So let's get into the news of the day. I forgot. The clips now are not on this channel. Clips of the different segments are going over to a new channel. So spread the news, spread the good news to go and subscribe over there. If you can't always stick around for the full show and you're looking, I just want to see what that last segment was about, there's a different channel for that. It's Robert Gruler ESQ Clips. If you don't watch those clips because you're here with us the whole time, well, that's just even better. So don't worry about it. Nowhere, you don't have to do a thing. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Afghanistan. A lot of things left Afghanistan and a lot of things didn't, including couple hundred American, according to our military service. Several hundred Americans presumably are still left behind, but that's not it. We've talked a lot about that. America has largely shifted its attention to some degree to the dogs. Man's best friend. Not Joe Biden's best friend. His dog bites everybody at the White House. But the rest of us that don't carry around with us a sense of evil that dogs can sense, we like animals and animals like us back. And so people were concerned with the idea that not only were Americans being left behind, Afghan people, special immigration visa holders, people with green cards, people who have been helping America over the last 20 years, kind of troublesome that they were just being abandoned as the United States just ejected from the blast zone. So that wasn't it, though. There were also animals. And so I want to introduce you to this rescue agency based in Kabul called the Kabul Small Animal Rescue. They're over at a GoFundMe. And ever since the United States said that they were leaving Afghanistan, they put a lot of effort into getting the animals out of there. And so let me run through this update. We're going to hear from a woman. Her name is Charlotte Maxwell Jones. She is still in Afghanistan. And she was going to get on a plane on the last plane out of there, but she couldn't bring her dogs. And so she's still over there. I want to go through her story a little bit because it is kind of amazing. This is what she posted about a week ago, August 23rd, when the withdrawal was right in the middle of its boondoggle. Kabul Small Animal Rescue said the situation in Kabul is now critical. Desperately need a landing permit for the animals before it's too late. Please help. Please share. Help us get the word out. Thank you. And we heard this yesterday from an individual who gave us a super chat over on YouTube, Half Irish, gave us this super chat yesterday, said that check out Operation Hercules and the Kabul Small Animal Rescue Center, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So they are trying to get people out of the country, and now what we have is a whole slew of animals that many people are looking at and saying, my heart goes out to them, right? Well, what's going to happen to these animals if they are not saved? What's the Taliban going to do to them? So let's take a look at what this woman had to say. Back on August 23rd, this is Charlotte Maxwell Jones. She's watching Kabul collapse around her much more quickly than the U.S. government, the military community ever anticipated. They told us they did, but they didn't. And now this is what she's sort of watching, observing around her as Kabul is falling. Let's listen in and see how she's processing what her mission is, which is to help people get out of the country. Animals get out of the country, I'm sorry.
5 minutes ago, a fairly large group of Taliban left my lawn. As far as I know, it was led by Mullah Bashir Ahmadi, who is apparently the Taliban chief of foreign embassies and foreign organizations. He brought 12 armed men into my lawn. One of them had a grenade launcher, which seems a bit over the top. They told me that I should leave immediately. Then they tried to put guards inside my house, which is a very small house. We have settled on guards outside the house. They have said that they will give us safe passage to the airport for as large a group as we have. They have told me to leave first. It's very obvious what will happen if I leave first. We can get our people out within a few days. We have permits to do that now. We need a landing permit for our animals. We have stuck it out this far. We are not going to leave them. We need a landing permit. Because I think it's going to continue to get more difficult.
All right, so, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, yeah, they're just dogs, but they're dogs, and there's people over there, and I can understand that, and I think you can have empathy for all creatures at the same time, and you certainly prioritize people over a dog, right? There's no question about that. But to just sort of listen to this woman tell her story and to not have any empathy for what she is doing, right? She is saving life, is what she's doing, and she has a very strong connection to these animals, and she's doing amazing work, right, to try to save and do some good in the world. And so she's working hard. She's in Kabul doing a lot more than a lot of people, out there who would be screaming at her for being there, or, belittling her for this effort, right? She's out there trying to do good in the world. They're not. They're on Twitter, bad mouthing her. So we've got a lot of emotion here. This woman is in Kabul. Taliban's knocking on her door with grenade launchers saying, hey, you better get out of here. It's August 23rd. U.S. government has a very strict deadline. Get out of there by August 31st. They were up as soon as they could get out of there, and now she is still over there. Now, the Washington Examiner is giving us some information about the last moments. That was from August 23rd, where she's saying, look, we need a permit. We just need to get out of here. Send help. Posted it on Twitter. Have a GoFundMe. A lot of people were working on it. Last minute, yesterday on the show, we talked about the final soldier who was on the very last airplane out of there. Very similar scene with this woman. Washington Examiner says that the U.S. woman left behind in Kabul has 130 rescue dogs. Why? DOD no-fly animal policy is what they're pointing to. And this woman was from Tennessee. Her name is Charlotte Maxwell Jones, owns an animal rescue center in Kabul, not allowed passage home by the Department of Defense because she carried a disabled puppy in her arms. A disabled puppy in her arms. DOD says no. One of the 130 animals she was ordered to leave behind in the final days of the airlift. Charlotte Maxwell Jones refused to board the plane without her puppy on Monday, so the military ordered her to leave, turn loose 130 crated dogs that mostly belong to Americans and Afghans who were evacuated. According to social media postings, this occurred even though Maxwell Jones secured flights from nonprofit organizations that had permission to land in a neutral country. And so you may have been seeing this around the social medias. This image was being passed around. Even Richard Grenell, former Trump advisor, was even posting this, said Jake Sullivan and Abe Lincoln should be fired for many reasons. They should also be known for abandoning dogs in locked crates. So he posted this image, and you can see what it looks like, right? This is a scene. There's a helicopter there in the background. You've got maybe a dozen more crates, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 in this picture. Who knows how far it goes off into the distance, but there are dogs inside of these crates. Water bottles scattered all over the place. Looks like dog food is also scattered around. So they're just like dumped a bunch of water on the ground, dumped a bunch of food, sort of scattered that around. And the dogs are just laying there. You can zoom in, and there are animals in these crates, right? These are not empty crates. There's clearly a dog there, clearly a dog here. So it's certainly concerning. Now, as this was spreading around the internet like wildfire, as people were rightly disgusted with the images that they saw, people started to ask questions, because we were also seeing a lot of the imagery of the airplanes that were also flying out of Kabul. We were looking at the numbers. Joe Biden kept coming out, we got this many thousands of people out, but we were seeing aircraft with empty planes. We were seeing people that were being denied access to the airport. Glenn Beck's organization and all sorts of different organizations were having difficulty at maneuvering anything, and we've seen full pictures of airplanes, mostly empty, exiting Kabul. So why would they not be able to bring the dogs? Good question. So as people were heated about this, John Kirby, press secretary from the Pentagon, needed to address this. Says, hey, everybody, you can trust me when I tell you what's going on here. To correct erroneous reports, he says, the U.S. military did not leave any dogs in cages at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, including the reported military working dogs photos circulating online were animals under care of the Kabul Small Animal Rescue. Oh, not dogs under our care. Oh. So that's John Kirby telling you the inside baseball there. Now, if you're not on Twitter, if you were wondering, God, this sounds familiar, and I'd like to respond to this statement because I have some choice words for this fella, and you're not on Twitter, don't worry. Your boy had your back. I was on there today, submitted this, said, hey, John, same shtick, different species, buddy, because we've already heard this scenario before. Oh, those aren't our Americans. They're not even on our list. They didn't even tell us they were coming in here before. Americans come, they don't tell us. They leave, they don't tell us. It's not our Americans. We got our Americans out. I don't know who those Americans are. Not our problem. So it's the same thing with the dogs, right? Oh, those aren't our dogs. They're the Kabul Small Animal Rescue's dogs. Run by Charlotte, who's from Tennessee. So it's her problem, not ours. Okay, so that's the military. Now, you can understand it, right? You can understand the military. I'm being deadly serious here, right? If you are prioritizing human life versus animal life, it's not even a question. That's why we use dogs for all sorts of dangerous activities instead of humans. There's no question about why that is a logical and reasonable thing to do. But if that's not the case, right? If there's room on an airplane to bring a puppy, why wouldn't you bring the puppy? So it's a little bit of a different conversation. So now if the military say, look, we had only certain room, we were actually throwing people out of the back, we were throwing luggage out of the back of the aircraft because it was so dang full, like we were seats, and don't bring that, or was that it? Because it didn't seem like that. So let's see what else is going on. Let's go over. We heard from John Kirby. He's saying, oh, it's not our problem. It's the Kabul Small Animal Rescue, right? He's singling them out by name, and pay close attention to that. He's not saying they're animal rescue dogs. He's saying they're Kabul Small Animal Rescue, specific. He's capitalizing K, S for small, A for animal, R for rescue. That's a proper name. That's the name of the organization. He's pointing the finger to them. Don't blame the military. Blame Kabul. KSAR is what we'll use as the acronym. So we check back in with this organization called the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Organized in England, 1824, this organization here, International Animal Rescue Organization, primarily created to prevent the abuse of horses back in the days before automobiles. Horses were driven through freezing cold winters, hot summers, little food, little water, those types of things. So this organization was created to help. They posted an update. They said, urgent update and action plan from Charlotte and Kabul Small Animal Rescue. Says, we're writing with an urgent update on the status of Charlotte, the founder of KSAR. The animals under the care, including 130 dogs, and the ongoing efforts to evacuate them. Here's the update. Now, this was posted on social media. In case you're wondering what we're talking about, here's some cute little puppies for you. Now, no sound in this video, but apparently this was posted on social media. This is a whole bunch of puppies running around a parking lot in Kabul, right? So this is what people are looking at. These are innocent animals that are living creatures that deserve respect and some dignity. So what we have there is exactly what we're talking about. We go back to KSAR and Charlotte. As the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was happening, this is the update that is being provided by SPCA. As the withdrawal was happening, Charlotte never relented in her efforts to get the animals out. She was able to rescue 46 working dogs, several pets. Her dedication to saving lives is a remarkable testament to her courage and her commitment. Yeah, no question about that. Courage, no kidding. Talk about believing in something. The majority of KSAR staff and the cats in their care were never granted access to the airport. They're safe for the moment in another location in Kabul. Current information regarding the status of KSAR's 130 dogs is much less clear, despite our constant efforts to confirm their whereabouts. We'll check back in with the Taliban on that point at the end of this segment. Here is what we know. In the end, the dogs and their caretakers were explicitly not allowed to board military aircraft, and numerous private charter aircraft were not granted access to the airport either. Charlotte was informed that most of the dogs had to be released into the airport as the airport was evacuated. She had to let them out, turning once rescued shelter dogs into homeless strays. They were not giving access to the flight we had secured to transport them out of the country. No access to the flight. SPCA organized the flight. They couldn't get on it. They were within the airport in an area used for housing employees at the far end of the flight line. We haven't been able to confirm the number of dogs released, nor can we confirm whether the U.S. military evacuated the 46 working dogs that had been under their care. We are urgently pressing for more details. While this is more difficult now than the U.S. military, now that the military has completely evacuated Kabul, we refuse to give up. Now, why? Why did this happen, right? There are SPCAs trying to organize flights, trying to get them evacuated. Private charter aircraft, not allowed on military aircraft, okay, but not allowed on chartered aircraft either. Well, that doesn't make any sense. What if there's room? What if it's paid for? There's a runway, the airport is operational. Why would Charlotte not be able to bring her dogs back to the United States? Why? Well, like everything that ruins anything good, it's the CDC, according to the SPCA, the Center for Disease Control. They recently enacted a policy suspending transport of dogs from Afghanistan and more than 100 other nations. They said that this specifically, quote, was a terrible impediment despite our negotiations and pleadings. We applied for emergency exemption against the CDC guidelines so we could get out on our chartered flights, but the CDC's adherence to its import policy during this time of crisis put animals and people at risk. We are alarmed that the leaders at the CDC are not bringing a more balanced perspective to this issue, especially after the U.S. House of Representatives rebuked them on this issue. The entire situation is a reminder that when governments, including the U.S., don't recognize the human connection to animals, they put people at risk. If Charlotte and her staff had been allowed to take their animals with the support of private animal rescue groups that had been paid for and organized a charter flight, they'd be safe. So would the animals. Now she's in Kabul, desperately working to bring these animals into a safer space. So what they're saying nicely is that the U.S. government and the State Department and the military professionals operating this thing are responsible for the death of these dogs and maybe Charlotte, right, if something happens to her. Because their dumb, boneheaded policies about dog imports from the CDC, for whatever reason, nobody could wrap their heads around the idea that this is a crisis, this is an emergency, this is a catastrophic disaster that went off in Afghanistan, despite what the Biden administration was telling you. But apparently they had, look, they couldn't find a few hundred Americans, but they adhered to the CDC guidelines. So that's good news for the military. At least Dr. Fauci won't be mad at them for whatever reason, or Rochelle Walensky. Now, this is the data set from the NPR telling us that the U.S. did ban importing dogs. U.S. is banning the importation of dogs. Happened June 2021, so this is on Biden's watch. More than 100 countries. We're doing this to make sure we can protect the health and the safety of the dogs that are imported into the United States, as well as the public health, says Dr. Emily Pierici of the CDC. So that's their justification for it, to protect the dogs that are going to be, I guess, stranded in Afghanistan. Now, many people would be thinking about these stranded dogs and thinking that the Taliban is going to, eliminate them or execute them or put them down or whatever you want to call it. But quite frankly, I'm optimistic about that. Taliban, they had a press conference today since there are new international partners, and it sounds like the dogs are going to be just fine. Here we go. This is the Taliban speaking today.
Also, there's a lot of noise in Western press about the dogs that were left behind by Americans. Is that true? And also, Western press, English press, is saying that the Taliban has sentenced the dogs to death.
It is not true. Yeah, the Americans left the dogs to get out from their specific places, but our teams and our officials called the in charge of those dogs, and today they came to airport and they are trying to collect the dogs, and they are trying to facilitate for them and what they need to give them.
Is they alive, and how many are there?
Particularly, I cannot give you a specific number, but they are alive. And from the beginning, when we come to the front door of the airport, we were we were in touch with the in charge of the dog, and they are working and they are feeding the dogs, and I think there's no problem. But you know, situations were not too good, and maybe there are some problems. But at all, we can say that they are.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you could hear the reporter's questions only there at the beginning. The reporter was sort of saying something like, you know, the Western media is very, very concerned about these dogs, by the way. And so we have to keep asking about the dogs. And the Taliban's like, oh, yeah, no, they haven't been sentenced to death. No, we haven't stoned them. No, they're good. Yeah, the Americans left them and we've taken good care of them. The dogs are alive. We're feeding the dogs. So the Taliban is treating the dogs better than the Biden administration did. So hopefully they do the same thing with the other American people that are left over there as well. We'll see. Now let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and see what you have to say about it. We have some super chats over on YouTube as well, but let's check in over here first. We've got DG McBride that says, every time I think there is no way I could be more disgusted with the Biden administration, they prove me wrong. Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more of that. There's a lot of stuff leaking out of the administration, talking about some of the phone calls taking place between Ghani and others, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Christiana says, I've been saying for years that the one thing that will unite Americans is our love for animals, no question. I can never understand why politicians don't include animal welfare in their platform. You want to melt our hearts? Care for our pets. It's that simple. Trump could have turned those suburban Karens right around if he had pledged to end euthanasia in the U.S. for homeless pets. It's a good point, Christiana. It really is a great point. I mean, why don't they do that they do it. They have their own causes, right? Bernie Sanders, the millionaires and the billionaires, all day on Twitter, every stinking day. It's all he says. So why don't you just have somebody who's just, no more homeless dogs, no more animal shelters, puppies for everybody. Landslide, 50 state victory, electoral landslide. Christiana, that's your idea. I think you should run with it. And I like it. Let's see what else we have over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Shot. Drearier Spider says, I gave my dog the biggest hug ever yesterday. If the Afghanistan catastrophe wasn't bad enough already, that picture of the dog's cage in the airport was disturbing and unsettling. No pause left behind. That's from Drearier Spider. Yeah, and that scene in that story of the woman, like, I can picture her. Like, can I get on the airplane with you? The Taliban are cascading in, jumping over the border of the airport. Can you let me on? Is that a puppy that you have? Well, then no. You have to drop that thing. You want me to drop this disabled puppy on the middle of the tarmac here in Kabul airport? Yeah, I do. Otherwise, you're not getting on the plane. So she says, all right, I'm not going. Good for her, man. I mean, that's crazy. But it's believing in something, and I admire the hell out of that. Want to Know says, do you think the soldiers should have picked up the water bottles and recycled them? Yeah, probably. I mean, global warming, hello, and cause recycling and global warming are the biggest problems. Some people think this is serious. Too much plastic on the shores and floating in the ocean. That's a great point, Want to Know, It's a great point. Yeah, the water bottles and global warming. Don't let AOC see that picture. The Americans, not that big of a deal. The puppies, though, and the water bottles, yeah. Want to Know says, what about the missing congressmen and 7 buses that are missing? Are we missing congressmen? I didn't know anything about that. Sergeant Bob says, the morals of people can be judged by the way they treat animals. I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? People who are not kind to animals. Why is that? Always suspect. Radice says, I have a 17-year-old dog that I would die for. She has the Biden disease. She falls upstairs. I care about her and got ramps. Maybe Puppet Joe needs ramps. Yes, I like that, Radice. We could save America by just installing some ramps. Maybe that's why he's so cranky. He's been very cranky lately. Maybe some ramps. Want to Know says, Rob, I disagree. Rob, dogs are used because they have big noses and ears. They're cute and they work for food and they playtime. Yeah, that's why. That's not why we use the dogs. It's just because they're cute and fun and cuddly. And we like fluffy, cuddly things. We have Paula MK says, hey, Rob, maybe I'm missing something, but Biden kept saying that Trump made a deal to leave by May 1, which is why he made the decision to engage in this rapid, disastrous debacle of an exit. But we didn't leave until August 31st. If Biden is using Trump's deal as an excuse, why didn't we leave by May 1st? Biden was in office then, right? Just trying to understand how all this makes sense. Well, Paula MK, I think unfortunately you're going to be on a continual journey if you find answers on the road to nirvana to understand how anything in this administration works. Please do share. I understand your concern and I empathize with it because it doesn't make any sense, logically speaking. And we've talked about this on the show. I took screenshots of all of the other things that Joe Biden has reversed. He came into office, changed many policies, changed all sorts of spending policies, regulatory policies, economic policies, border policies, one of the more obvious ones, changed everything and took ownership of it, except this one. But he is still kind of taking ownership of this. It was a historic success, massive airlift, major victory, but also Trump started. So I don't know what he's doing. Honestly, I think when you have these different these inconsistencies in a person's thinking, that you might want to see a brain doctor about that, which would be a good idea for Joe. Christiana says, why can't we hold the DOD accountable? Our government is so messed up. They go after rescuers and call them domestic terrorists. At the same time, they abandon them to die at the hands of actual terrorists. Yeah, it's a good point, right? Is the government still accountable to the people? Are they? I don't know. We'll see, I guess, on the next election. I mean, that's how we exercise our displeasure. But a lot of people have exercised their displeasure, and Joe Biden's barreling forward. So not sure we're going to see any accountability out of this administration. Good to see you, Christiana. We also have Be Brave says, I love seeing the Taliban interviews, seeing all the brand new American gear and arms. Yeah, they look pretty good. It's nice gear. Yeah, I mean, if they're handing it out, if the U.S. government is handing it out, I'd like to get on that list because I could use a new set of gear. We have News Now Wyoming says, watching the Taliban do a press conference, it makes me think they should make a podium with a mock-up of the presidential seal on it. I mean, they are legit now. It is true. They are legit. Yeah, they should. And they should also slap a presidential seal on one of the C-130s that they got in their Christmas tree stocking, and a presidential seal right on that, Air Force One. The Taliban is the new America now. Yeah, Air Force One, international partners. They're going to be flying over to the UN councils. What a world we're living in. Yeah, that was America's enemy for the last 20 years, and they're doing press conferences. Yeah, and they'll have a podium soon. Oh, I can't even take it. Gale08 says, contrast this with the British Department of Defense, which helped Pete Farthing and Nowzad load 150 dogs onto a non-profit charter flight. So there you go, competence. It's true the dogs will be quarantined for 4 months after their arrival in the UK. Okay, I bet animal nonprofits here in the US would have ensured they quarantine her dogs as well. Thank you, Gail, for that. What a great comment. Beautiful compare and contrast right there. Gale08, love that. Very simple to compare and contrast the two. U.S. government, sorry, our CDC, which is really our government now. They kind of run everything. They get to decide how most things work now. They've said, sorry, your disabled puppy, Charlotte, whoever you are from Tennessee, you're not allowed on our flight because of your dog. He might spread maybe the coronavirus or something when they get back into the United States. Gail says, so we just quarantine the dogs. We had that problem in the UK also. And what did we do? We just quarantine them. Not complicated. America just says, oh, they can't get on the flight. Disabled dog. Just throw it on the tarmac. Throw it in the trash. Okay. So that was Gail. Thank you for that great comment. Thunder7 says, CDC welcomes COVID-infected and TB-infected gangstas flooding into the country from the southern border, brings in possible COVID-infected terrorists from Afghanistan, but won't allow innocent dogs and cats into the country being paid for fully by a private charity. It's vile beyond belief. It is. It's almost like it's evil almost, right? It feels dark. Like, who's making that decision? Who's on the phone saying, dogs? Absolutely not. Don't call me again. They're not coming on the plane. Maybe it was Joe Biden. We know that his relationship with Major Biden, the dog from the White House that's biting everybody, that can sense evil and just doesn't want to be in that household. Yeah. Biden doesn't like dogs, apparently. Soul Viking says, yes, sure, they are feeding the dogs to whom? We are not sure. Pathetic. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. That was from Seoul. Jeremy Matrita says, honestly, people, they missed a perfect photo op. Nothing is more heartwarming than a beautiful woman carrying a sick puppy. I pray for her safe return. I would certainly like to meet someone with as much guts as her. Yeah, that woman has major cojones. She should run for office and displace our entire military apparatus because she's got bigger brass than they do. Kareem says, I saw a freshly killed, ran over squirrel last weekend while biking. Broke my heart. Animals have the right to live too. That is why I don't like squashing bugs all that much. All that much, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Kareem. You know, life is very sacred. Life is a beautiful thing. And the people who sort of forget that, even around the margins, with animals, with even flowers and life, and with, you know, with certain things, I think you can go a little bit bonkers with it, no question about that. But I think that there's an importance to recognize that we're all part of the same universe, right? We're all interconnected to some degree. And so if you're going to just be cavalier with dogs, oh, it's just a dog. Well, it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel morally full. All right, we have some two more over here from watchingthewatchers.local. Says, man, these people lie so much. It's starting to make me wonder about how much of what they say is actually true. You and me both, Nadarb. Like with the Taliban, are they really that dangerous and brutal, or is it just another exaggeration? How hard would it be if the Taliban is actually just a group of men fighting the most advanced military in the history of the world? How hard would it be to frame up some propaganda to make it seem like they are a danger to us all the way across the world and not the other way around? Not that hard. Makes me start questioning everything. Look, Nadarb, I understand that a lot, right? I saw hints of that when we were reading a story here on this channel. I think you were there with us that day, where the reporting was saying that the people in the surrounding precincts, like the cities, the nation states, or whatever, however they're organized in Afghanistan, around outside of Kabul, as the Taliban was parading into their towns, they were celebrating them as liberators. Because the old government was saying you can't do a whole bunch of stuff. Essentially, they were on lockdown. The old government was locking them down, saying you can't ride your mopeds, you can't ride your bikes, you can't really get out and do many things. And so when the Taliban showed up, people were celebrating. Hey, finally, we get to leave our houses now and go do things again. Because they're more in alignment with each other's cultural norms. The U.S. was trying to slap in a different structure into an environment, a context that doesn't want it there. So, yeah, right. You could easily see the alternative narrative coming out and consider these guys to be, you know, liberators of their own country. I'm sure they see themselves as that. And the people in many parts of their own country see themselves as that. Now, that doesn't negate what we have seen come out of the Taliban and what we expect to see out of the Taliban. But I'm with you, Nadarb. I think it's right to question everything that these people tell us because they have been lying very consistently. And they're not looking out for our best interest at all. All right, let's see what else. A couple more from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. That was from Nadarb. A few more here. News Now Wyoming says, seriously, could you imagine the goodwill for Biden if he met a plane full of dogs at the airport with no watch on? Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. It would be very great. Puppies, all sorts of puppies just coming off the plane. Yeah, that'd be great. We have B Thorn Brad. I don't know what's going on here. B Thorn Brad is in the house. Says, Rob, thanks for your levity on this one. I love dogs. It makes me sick hearing this, but I appreciate the discussion. Thanks, Brad. I'm glad that you're here. Look, it's a awful thing. Thanks for being here. We're trying to get through it. We have Sergeant Bob says, famous remark, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. It's a good point, Sergeant Bob. Not too many friends in Washington. Christiana says, one last one on this, I promise, just for the record, it's actually illegal to own a dog who is disabled in California. It's also illegal to have a disabled dog at a pet store, and that includes rescue events. Crazy, but just more of our dumb laws. Maybe that's also a USDA law. Also, that Taliban guy seemed nice, LOL. It's working. The Taliban's charm offensive is working because they're taking better care of our animals than our own stinking administration is. Thanks, guys. Let's see what came in from YouTube. We have K. Bean said, Biden got 90% of Americans out of Afghanistan. 200 left. 2 weeks ago, there were 10,000. They left 1,000, 10%, but evacuated 5,600 of the 10,000. I don't like doing math, especially live, but that doesn't add up to me. And she says that's woke math, and that's why it doesn't add up, because it's woke. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to make you feel good and be equal across the board, whatever that means for numbers, but I think it means whatever they want it to mean. Jake Sullivan can come out and report something. John Kirby can report something else. Anthony Blinken can report something else. Jen Psaki can report something else. And Joe Biden says everything they said is wrong. So that's how the administration's working. Good stuff. We also have Helmet Lies says the dogs were probably not COVID vaccinated. Yeah, it's true. And maybe they voted for Trump. Maybe they were participating in the January 6th election. Maybe they refused to wear their masks. Maybe they refused to use the proper pronouns. A lot of reasons here that many people in our military would, of course, reject them for any one of those bases. So that's good. Ravitch is here, says, hey, Robert, no need try pronouncing my last name. Thank you, Ravitch. I appreciate that. Says, but wouldn't this be considered animal cruelty, knowing what can happen? So yes, if we were in the appropriate jurisdiction, I think that would be more applicable. So Ravitch, it's a great question, right? If this were happening, let's say in Arizona or California or someplace locally in the United States, and you just, were caring for a bunch of animals and you just left them, abandoned them, and if there were a marauding force of terrorists coming in to seize those dogs and you abandon those dogs to them, yeah, you could get in trouble for that, right? It'd be animal cruelty or animal neglect, all sorts of different statutes. You got to treat animals appropriately. But that's in the jurisdiction of the United States. When you are in the middle of a war zone and there's really no law or order, and you're dealing with the military that has essentially the total monopoly on nation state power at a high level, they do whatever they want to do, and there's not really much repercussion for them as we see. We also have, and thank you for that, Ravitch, it's a good point, but we're just in the wrong jurisdiction. It's the Taliban. So unless they make it illegal, what are they going to do? Come prosecute the U.S. military? We have Christine here says, President Trump, can you please help bring all our canine soldiers and animals home from Afghanistan? Sure hope so. That's a good plea. Thank you for that, Christine. Let's see if anything else came in on locals before we jump into the next segment. B. Thorne, Brad, says, Rob, I was just giving you S for when you read my name off of the chat. Much love. Thank you, Brad. And that's fine. I deserve every bit of that. So feel free to keep it coming. I deserve every bit of the mispronunciations. That, my friends, was it for the questions over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And thank you very much for the super chats. Christine, Ravitch, Helmet Lies, and K-Bean and others over on YouTube. Appreciate all the support. All right, so let's get into the next segment on the show. We're going to move on into the January 6th stuff. The Democrats, their very select committee, full of very special people, really. I mean, they really are special people on that committee. They're continuing to investigate their political enemies. They're doing it under the guise of a January 6th investigation that they're just trying to get to the bottom of the insurrection that almost seized control of America. And so they're going to be going after the Republicans, the GOP, all of their political opponents. They're going to use a formal government procedure in order to investigate them. So that's something else that's happening in America now. So let's go through and see what's happening. CNN is reporting that the January 6th committee is asking telecommunications companies, telecoms, to preserve phone records of members of Congress. They're saying it's qualified by those who participated in the Stop the Steal rally. Okay, so you've got a bunch of congresspeople having private conversations with a number of different people. You've got mostly GOP congresspeople who would be any part involved with Stop the Steal, regardless of what you think about the issue. If you're a Democrat and you're like, well, they should be investigated. Think about if you just flip the script a little bit. What if the Republicans take control after they do in 2022 and they want to start investigating Antifa and they want to start investigating BLM and they want to see the records of all the Democratic congresspeople and elected officials and all of their inner circles who may have been communicating with Antifa or BLM during the summer of unrest? Maybe people like, I don't know, Kamala Harris, who retweeted a bail bond company or bail bond fund that was going to be raising money to help get people who torched the 3rd Precinct Police Department in Minneapolis. She's going to bail them out of custody. Almost kind of sounds like she might be involved in a conspiracy or something to help commit criminality. Okay, my point here is that if you're going to go after all their records, flip the script. You can go get all the Democratic records, and that would also be inappropriate. That would be insane to allow any government to go after your political opponents on the basis of whatever they're saying happened here. Okay, we've already done an impeachment over this thing. We're doing it again. We're going to continue. Okay, so let's go back to the article. House Select Committee is investigating the deadly January 6th incident. Stop the steal. Records request is the first step in the committee's investigatory process. Could signal the direction they want to go to when they want to call the witnesses. Unclear what means the committee is going to use to compel the telecom companies to cooperate. The committee does have subpoena power, but requesting the information, especially from members of Congress, could lead to a lengthy battle. Now, we've talked about the guy who's in charge of this committee, Bennie Thompson, Fishing Bennie Thompson. He wrote this letter that we talked about at length on August 25th. This guy over here, and you recall that this was asking for basically everything, right? They wanted 12 pages of documents, a lot of stuff. Not going to go through that one again. Talked about this in the legal context as being a fishing expedition. It's a pejorative term for a non-specific search for information, especially incriminating information. It's typically used by policing authorities like this Gestapo, whatever they're calling this committee. The people who are going after their political rivals. Fishing. We want everything that you have. Just give us everything, because we're going to comb through your records and find something. Somebody introduced me to the quote on this channel called, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." Just give me any person, yourself included. You commit crimes every single day. Every time you drive into work, every day, crime committed. All day. A cop could find one, no question about it. So what we have here is that it's a fishing expedition. This was back from the earlier letter. Everything, all documents about Donald Trump, all calendars, all documents and communications about Pence, all video communications about the president, all photograph, right? It's a total fishing expedition, which is why we called it Fishing Bennie Thompson. Well, Bennie Thompson is out now. Bennie and the Democrats, as we call it, are now with a new letter from August 30th. Came out this week saying, hello, Mr. Stanky, the CEO of AT&T. So the CEO of a telecommunications company is getting a direct letter from Congress, from the United States government. The federal government, Congress, sends a letter to your business saying, we're doing an investigation, sir. We need access to the data that you have. What do you do as the CEO of a company like that? It's not good. So he says, pursuant to our House resolution, we're approved to investigate our opponents, our political opponents. So we need some help. The Select Committee seeks to preserve these records so that we can examine the violent attack on the Capitol in the broader context of efforts to delay or interfere. See that? The broader context, not just about the Capitol. Do you see what's happening here? They're expanding the scope of the investigation. It's not just about the attack on the Capitol, which is part one here. It's also about the broader context of efforts to delay or interfere with the peaceful transfer of power following election 2020. Select Committee specifically asks that you preserve all of this stuff. Let's see what else we have here. The attached document list lists the individuals whose records they want to preserve. Sending this to AT&T, here's a list of people that we want you to gather. Inclusion of any individual is not viewed as indicative of wrongdoing, because there's no evidence of that. They're just doing a fishing expedition. Identifies individuals who may have relevant information, indicates where court filings and other public accounts are, asks that you preserve the records in your custody. But also, please maintain confidentiality. Now, the CNN article is telling us that they did not make public the list of names that the Democrats are seeking to gain, but we've already seen a list like this. Remember, we talked about this, I think this was last week, when we were going through the first letter. We had a lot of big names on here. People like Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer. We have Jack Posobiec, big name on Twitter. George Papadopoulos, George Flynn. We have Katrina Pearson. We talked about many of these people. Enrique Tarrio, Proud Boys, right? All of these people. Now, many of these people are not Congress people, but you can see that they're going after records for big names, right? Big names. So if they're going after Congress people, you're going to presume it's going to be people who are closely involved in that. And so we've got some names that are being floated around. Lauren Boebert of Colorado. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. We got Jim Jordan of Ohio. We have Biggs of Arizona, Gosar of Arizona, Mo Brooks of Alabama, maybe, Madison Cawthorn, Matt Gaetz, of course, Libby Gohmert, Jody Heiss, Scott Perry. Pretty big names. federal government going after private companies to go get their private records in a Democratic select committee. It's not going through a formal judicial process for any of these people, not being seen by an independent judge, not part of a warrant or any special filings with affidavits or anything like that. It's just the Democrats are in control of Congress. They control the House of Representatives. And so they decided that they're going to investigate some Republicans. That's it. And they're going to go get all of their phone records in America. That's nice. What else do they want? They want cell site location information. So they want, they're telling AT&T, please preserve all cellular location information. We don't just want what they were saying. We want to know where they were, including cell tower locations. We want all SMS and MMS. We want all, which is all your text messages, all wireless phone numbers coming in and out, all IP addresses, all GPS locations. They want anything that's going to designate what they call it HLR registry, a location registry, wireless numbers. They're saying, please preserve any physical addresses, grid coordinates, all of it. AT&T, give us every stinking bit of data you have on these people. In addition to that, the records, the content, all the data records associated with each named individual, all the wireless numbers, SMS messaging, incoming and outgoing, all timestamps, duration, all bytes sent, received, all ports used, any indicators of using the Wi-Fi. They also want the names of the Wi-Fi networks that they're on. Anything stored on the cloud, any stored records, wireless numbers, any texts, anything. Any cloud services associated with the numbers, because guess what? They're going to go after them too. So if you're on AT&T, but you upload your photos to Google Drive or Apple Cloud, well, they're coming for them next. Wild times. We have a reference material they also want. Please preserve reference documents as well. Data dictionaries, detailed definitions, switch information, cell site data, data dictionary for cell site attributes and terminology. What else? They want subscriber information and mobile phone numbers. So name and IDs, physical addresses, email addresses. They want all the Gmail addresses, any iPhone, iTunes accounts, all phone numbers. They want billing records, prepaid refill cards. They want payments, methodology of payments, any authorized users. They're going to go after their families, activation dates. They want the exact model, make, and phone number, IMEI numbers of all the cell phone gear, account number changes if people are changing their numbers. They want everything, folks. Select committee says, please don't disable, suspend, lock, or cancel, or interrupt any of these subscribers to any services. If you're not willing or able to respond to this without alerting subscribers, please contact us first. So listen, if you are not able or willing to do this without telling them, then contact us. Do you see what they're saying? Don't tell them. Just get us the information. If you're not going to just give us the information, if you're going to tell them about this, then just don't get it. Don't tell them. Just contact us first. We'll see if we really need it. We don't want you to go alert people that we're investigating them. From the government. No due process, nothing. They want you to just give it over. And these congresspeople are U.S. citizens, by the way, in case I forgot that point. As the Select Committee continues its work, we anticipate delivering to you document requests for more specific categories of information. So just open up a channel and just keep that data flowing. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Garbage Congressperson Bennie Thompson, chairman of whatever this stupid committee is. So McCarthy obviously is not happy about this, probably because he has a lot to hide. No question about that. But McCarthy says that GOP will not forget if firm hands records to the January 6th panel. Very angry about this, which Shakespeare said it, right? Me doth thinks the lady doth protesteth too much, right? Whatever that quote was. Why is he so upset about this? If these companies comply with the Democrats' orders to turn over private information, they're violating the law. But he doesn't tell us what law they're violating. Monday's letters are not formal subpoenas, but they do ask the companies to turn over that stuff. Here is what McCarthy posted. It says, Adam Schiff, Bennie Thompson, Nancy Pelosi's attempts to strong-arm private companies to turn over individuals' private data would put every American with a phone or computer in the crosshairs of a surveillance state run by Democratic politicians. Hey, dummy, are we already not in that? Are you nuts? Have you been listening to what's been going on in this country for the last decade? Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, we are already living in a surveillance state. You and your party have done nothing to stop any of the Vax Pass nonsense. Everybody's going to be surveilled up the wazoo from the CDC and the World Health Organization. So I don't know that's being run by the Democrats. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. We are already being surveilled up the yin yang. There's no question about it. If these companies, he says, comply with the Democrat order to turn over private information, they're in violation of federal law. What law? They're doing it every day, subject to losing their ability to operate in the U.S. Whatever. If companies still choose to violate a federal law, Republican majority will not forget, will stand with Americans and hold them fully accountable under the law. Kevin McCarthy is a joke. This is a joke statement. He's not going to do a damn thing. This is all a bunch of bloviating bluster. The Democrats and the Republicans have been spying on Americans every nook and cranny. They know everything you do, and they have been seizing it for decades now. So I don't know what he's talking about. If they're reading our phone records and text messages, I'm okay seeing all theirs, as long as it's even. If the Democrats are going to go after McCarthy and the Republicans and we're going to see all their texts, I want to see Nancy Pelosi's. I want to see Bennie Thompson's. I want to see Joe Biden's, if he knows how to use a cell phone, and Kamala Harris, and see what they're talking about as well. If they're going to be spying on us, well, it's just fair game. Open it up to the rest of us. What do you have to say about this? Let's check in on the questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Couple in queue. We have first up, want to know, says, what about a person in charge like Pelosi's records? Why wasn't there enough security for such a large crowd? Yeah, I'd be very curious. I have a lot of questions about that. I'd love to know what Mayor Muriel Bowser was doing when she was drafting that letter on January 5th, the day before January 6th, declining federal aid to bring in additional troops and support to secure the area. Who was she talking to? Can we get Mayor Muriel Bowser? Can we get the Sergeant of Arms at arms for both the House and the Senate? Can we get all of the Capitol Hill police officers' phone records? Can we see what they had to say about any of this stuff? No, it's all the political opponents of the Democrats. That's it. What a joke. So much more to continue. Another witch hunt. This is from Sergeant Bob. So much more important to continue another witch hunt and trample the First Amendment than deal with the mess in Afghanistan and the southern border. And please no Kamala cackle. Next time I want to hear her cackle will be after November 2022, when she thinks her impeachment is another joke. That's from Sergeant Bob. I don't think she'll be laughing then, Bob. We'll see about that, though. Thanks for the nice comment. We have Savdi says, always enjoy your podcast. I can't even think as fast as you talk. Seems like the only list the government doesn't want to disclose is the list of patrons for Hunter Biden's artwork. Yeah, that's funny. Yes. So, right. A lot of this data is very secret. It's very protected, very private, as long as it inculpates the Democrats. Is that a word? We have another question here from Nadarb says, they just want to use this as an excuse to try to see what kind of strategies people like Trump and the other MAGA people used to make such momentous change in the country in such a short period of time. They are scared because they see their voters leaving in droves for the MAGA government because they have nothing to offer the American people besides we aren't racist Republicans. They can feel the power slipping through their hands, and it infuriates them. And a big long line of ha-has there. That's from Nadarb. And look, I actually agree with that, Nadarb. I think that you're spot on. I think that all of these sort of grasping for powers, all of these really disgusting attempts to gain control of people and their lives are because of that, is because they're feeling that people are just decoupling from the government. And they can't have that. They need you to rely on the government. They need you to be scared and trust the government. Oh, what are we going to do? I don't know. Dr. Fauci, please help me. They need that. If you're on your own, thinking freely, doing what you want to do, and you're going, hey, quit wrecking my monetary supply, stop inflating my money, stop overly criminalizing my life and seizing my waking moments away from me. Stop taking my life away from my children. All of those different concepts. You start to wake up and think about this. They want you to just say, no, just put the mask on, shut your mouth, get in school, work your 9 to 5, pay your taxes, and just die peacefully while we just grift off of your productivity for 75 years without any complaints from you. We also have Paula MK says, this January 6th stuff has reached an all-time level of ridiculous. How about we subpoena every single congressperson's text, emails, and phone calls while we're at it? I'd love to see AOC's and Pelosi's conversations. On second thought, that might make me sick. Wonder if there's a vaccine for that. I would need it, probably. Don't you need an actual court order with probable cause to access phone records? Does anyone even care about the Constitution anymore? I do, Paula. I do. I care about it a lot. I know you do too. But yeah, ordinarily, yes, you do. It's private data. It's private material. This is some congressperson named Bennie Thompson, who is just now, I guess, the dictator of America. He just gets to extrajudicially get whatever access he wants to anything, even other congresspeople, even if they're his political enemies. Monster One says, if these companies comply with these orders, I fully expect Republicans to demand all communications related to BLM and Antifa. Will they? I doubt it, because the Republicans have no spines. Exactly right. That's exactly right, Monster One. He's going to talk a big game, and he's not going to do a damn thing about it. He knows it. I get tired of Republicans bending to the will of the Democrats and never exerting any political will themselves. Once the Democrats cross that Rubicon, it sets a precedent. At the least, there should be sanctions for this blatant violation of Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure. 100% right. Absolutely atrocious. It is extrajudicial attempts to take out a political opponent. And the fact that the Democrats aren't up in arms, they're endorsing this type of conduct, they're doing it all in the back of January 6th. Okay, look, you can just wait till the Republicans get in charge. If the Republicans were an actual strong political party, they would just give the Democrats a taste of their own medicine. They would do that. And I would still say that's insane. That's wrong. I don't want that to happen. I don't want anybody to be able to go in here and wipe out their political opponents in America and just go access their records because some loser congressman decided he needs it because he's on a select committee that was drafted on a political basis. That's insane. But the Republicans should do it. If the Democrats are going to do it to them, they should do it right back to them. And then we can just watch what happens to this country. It's a terrible precedent to set, but look, fair's fair. And I'd rather have both sides tearing each other down rather than one side that is just laying down and allowing these types of bad precedents to be set. I think two wrongs do make a right in this situation, not to just roll over. We have Hillary Clinton says, you could always wipe them with a cloth or use hammers to preserve them. That's good advice from Hillary. She knows a lot about that stuff. Home Cooking Music says, Kevin McCarthy will do nothing and like it. Yeah, he will. He's basically useless. The Republican Party's not even an oppositional party, as far as I can tell. Paula MK says, 2 words for all of Congress: impeachment party. That is all. We're primed for the impeachment party. We've already got impeachment party templates drafted up. News Now Wyoming says, in an answer to your question about my letters to the legislatures, I recently covered a local lawsuit that most of it was dismissed because the Officers Act was intentional. In 1979, we removed qualified immunity in state law from officers who behave poorly. However, if it was negligence, the statute of limitations is 4 years. If it is intentional misbehavior, the statute of limitations is 1 year. Okay, interesting. So yeah, go check out News Now Wyoming. He's on YouTube, and he covered a case, it sounds like, where he covered a lawsuit, where most of the case was dismissed because it was intentional. Interesting, yeah. So intentional misconduct, you got to bring a claim quickly, 1 year. If it's negligence, sometimes it takes a little while to determine whether it was actually negligence. And so the statute of limitations is 4 years. So depending on the categorization there, yeah, interesting. News Now Wyoming, he's over on YouTube and a good supporter on YouTube's on Locals, so check him out. Robute says, the lesson you can learn from this: so if you have illegal stuff on your storage drive, use the appropriate data erasing program to overwrite the data, so FBI can't access the data. That's from Robute. But what they're going after, Robute, is anything that was transversed over the interwebs. So that's a lot of data there. I don't think you can delete that unless you have access to the back-end servers. We have Nancy Pelosi's rack. Oh, that's worse than Nadler's diaper. Oh my gosh. Mr. Gruler, I'm sure you would love to see private photos of me. That's from Nancy Pelosi's rack. Oh, I'm going to have to get the vomit bucket out. Oh, gosh. Going to have to bring that back out again. We have Jeremy Matrita says, if any company were to hand over private information to Congress, they would be handing many of their customers to their competitors. Yeah, I don't think that there will be any backlash to that, right? If Americans were a little bit more engaged in their government and were upset about stuff like this, about a single select committee with a single congressperson investigating an entire oppositional political party, then they would demand his resignation. Or if AT&T was entertaining this decision, they would demand that not happen, right? That they are customers who believe in privacy rights. And if AT&T violates that, they're going to take their business elsewhere. But people are so disengaged that nothing will happen. We have Kevin McCarthy says, now they're looking into my OnlyFans account. Oh, shoot. I don't know what that means. So either they're looking into Kevin McCarthy, who is subscribing to many OnlyFans accounts. I mean, he might even be subscribed to, what's that guy's name? The pollster? Frank Luntz. Yeah, maybe he's subscribed to Frank Luntz's OnlyFans. Or maybe Kevin McCarthy is running an OnlyFans. That's even worse. This show has just gone, this is not a family segment. No, not at all. Bad imagery. Robute says, from this subpoena, there's another lesson to be learned. Don't use encrypted email and SMS. Use Signal and Proton Mail. Can't rely on the government to protect your right to privacy or anything else for that matter. Very good advice from Robute. We also have some other questions here from Davis Parks. Says Thomas Alito. Oh, is that on the? Oh, that's on the abortion case. So we're going to get there in a. Oh, that's on the abortion. Okay, so that's it. Let's see. Do we have any other? Nope, we're good to go on that side. Those were great questions, all from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I appreciate all of the support over there. Really do mean that. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got one more segment to get to today before we wrap up the show for the evening. Let's see what else is going. Okay, so we've got one more segment. We're talking about the Supreme Court. Big abortion news coming out of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just came out and allowed a Texas anti-abortion statute to go into effect. We're going to break down this case. A lot of people are really hot over this, especially the people who want abortion to remain as open and free and legal as possible. We're going to jump off with the headline here from Politico telling us that the Supreme Court is going to be allowing a very special 6-week abortion ban to take effect in Texas. We're going to go through this and break down the law itself, but let's get some background here. The Supreme Court early on Wednesday, they let a Texas state law take effect. The law is going to allow private citizens to sue to uphold a ban on a procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy, potentially creating a new template for states to impose strict restrictions on the abortion procedure. The court's decision is not acting on an emergency petition from a Texas abortion clinic. This is coming as the justices prepare to consider a bigger case in Roe versus Wade. So what's happening here? Let's break that down quickly. There is a new law that is in effect currently. It was set to go into effect, and people were challenging that. People from the sort of the pro-choice lobby were challenging this law, saying this new law is going to infringe on a woman's right to choose. We're going to take a look at the law more closely, but just procedurally, let's understand what's happening. Texas passes this law, signed into law, but it's not going to come into effect until today. The pro-choice crowd is very upset about this. So what they do is they file an emergency petition. They say, Judge, we need you to stop this law from going into effect because it's going to infringe on a woman's right to choose. All happening very quickly. Emergency petition goes up to the Supreme Court. A lot of drama, a lot of noise. Waiting outside the court building, waiting for the Supreme Court to come out and stop that abortion law. Guess what? Clock kept ticking. The bell rings, the night expires, and the Supreme Court doesn't say anything. They did not act on the emergency petition, which means they're not going to stop the law from going into effect, and it does. So let's take a look at what SCOTUS blog had to say. This is by Amy Howe over there. The ban now, it goes into effect. The law bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. This is a time that many people still don't even know they're pregnant. So it's early, very early. Allows private citizens to sue anyone who helps them get an abortion. Passed this law in a direct attempt to undercut Roe versus Wade, which established a constitutional right to have an abortion before the point of fetal viability. So this was sort of the framework that if the fetus can live on its own, then you can start to bring in some restrictions on abortion. But if it's that, if the fetus cannot live on its own, hard to put limitations on abortion. 6 weeks, well, that's in that bucket, right? It's in that fetus at 6 weeks can definitely not live on its own. So typically it can around or it goes into that next stage at about 24 weeks. So Texas is cutting it off way short. Under the old rules, 24 weeks after that time elapses, you can start implementing some restrictions on abortion. But Texas, we're not going to wait to 24 weeks. We're going to do it at 6. Then we're going to ban it. Court watchers and people on both sides of the abortion debate, they kept a vigil in the early hours of Wednesday morning, waiting for an order. Never came from the Supreme Court. Many experts expected the court to act before midnight Central Time when the law was scheduled to take effect, but at least the court now declined to block the law. The law defies Roe and Casey, the future of which are squarely at issue in a separate case coming up in the 2021-22 term involving a Mississippi law that also bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. So there is another case coming up on a Mississippi case. Supreme Court will probably hear several of these together. In Mississippi, theirs was 15 weeks. So under Roe and Casey, about 24 weeks was when you could start putting some restrictions. Then Mississippi brought it closer, 15 weeks. And now Texas is bringing it even closer, 6 weeks. Let's take a look at the Texas bill. It is SB 8, Senate Bill 8. You can see here, it is a bill relating to abortion, including abortions after detection of a child's unborn heartbeat. And it authorizes a private civil right of action. So it's a little bit different framework. Let's see what's happening here. Enacted by the legislature, state of Texas, the legislature finds that the state of Texas never repealed, either expressly or by implication, the state statutes enacted before Roe versus Wade. They say that the U.S. Supreme Court came out. What we're seeing here is the legislative explanation for why they're passing this. They're saying, listen, before we tell you what the law is, here's what's going on in our minds. We passed a law in the early years before Roe versus Wade came out that said abortion is a crime and it is prohibited unless a mother's life is in danger. Texas decided that for themselves. Then Supreme Court came out and said, oh no, abortion is now a constitutional right. And so Texas, your rules are invalid because we have decided that this is a constitutional right. So Texas, in this new law, is just reminding everybody. By the way, we never repealed that first law. Roe versus Wade came out, but we didn't change our position. So then they tell us a definition of a fetal heartbeat. It means cardiac activity or the steady and repetitive rhythmic contraction of the fetal heart within the gestational sac. Pretty simple definition, but you have to define it. Now, what is not allowed under SB 8? Prohibited the abortion of an unborn child with a detectable fetal heartbeat. See that right there? A physician may not knowingly perform or induce an abortion on a pregnant woman if the physician detected a fetal heartbeat for the unborn child or failed to perform a test to try to detect that. There is an exception that we'll get to in a minute, determination of a presence of the heartbeat. So now the law is saying if you get a heartbeat out of that fetus, you cannot abort that child. Should happen right about 6 weeks or so. So the question is, well, how do we determine whether that fetus has a heartbeat? I'm not somebody who delivers babies at all or deals in that area. So the law defines that for us. Let's see what it says. Determination of the heartbeat. How can we tell that it exists? For the purpose of determining the presence, quote, standard medical practice includes employing the appropriate means of detecting the heartbeat based on estimated gestational age and the woman. In making a determination, as long as it is consistent with the physician's good faith, as long as it is done with a reasonable understanding of standard medical practice, probably good enough. Physician making a determination shall record, shall record the method used, and a test. So it's requiring doctors to sort of notate the type of test that they are doing. Interesting. There's an exception here for medical records. So it says this does not apply if a physician believes that a medical emergency exists. Physician who performs an abortion under the circumstances shall make written notations about why he believed it was, or he or she believed it was a medical emergency that needed an abortion, explain what the medical condition was that prevented compliance with this subchapter, and a physician performing or inducing abortion shall maintain the records and a copy of the notations made in the previous section. And so you can see this, right? This is going to, both of these sections here are going to sort of cause doctors a little bit more work before they perform abortions. There's no question about that. That's kind of the point of this thing. It's saying, listen, if you're a doctor, we're now checking before you perform an abortion to make sure that there is no fetal heartbeat. And here's an appropriate way to do that. And if you are going to do it and you are going to conduct that abortion, you got to make some pretty clear notes about this. What was the age? What was the method used to determine the age? What was the test used for determining the heartbeat? You don't just get to say you did the test, right? We're going to make you document this thing. It's not just, let me listen. Oh no, there's nothing in there. Woman's 8 months pregnant. No, looks good to me. I didn't hear a heartbeat, so we're going to go ahead and abort that thing. No, you have to write it down. And obviously that's going to cause some friction. It's intended to, right? It's going to necessarily cause doctors to want to do less abortions because they got to document it now. And they got to be very clear about it because presumably if they're in violation of the law, maybe they're liable now for civil penalties. So doctors are going to edge, rather than erring on the side of, well, we'll just abort it, they're going to err on the side of, well, it's too late. So less women, I would guess, if I had to speculate, are going to be able to get doctors who want to perform abortions for them, which is the major criticism of the pro-abortion crowd. Let's see what else is happening. The Texas law that is now in effect already having consequences. Texas abortion clinics are turning away patients. Some Texas abortion clinics on August 31st were already turning them away. Since mid-August, all 11 of Planned Parenthood health centers have stopped scheduling visits for the past 6 weeks. Let's see. Planned Parenthood decision was prompted by a new law. We just read that. The vast majority of people who obtain an abortion are at least 6 weeks pregnant. As a result, the law would prohibit nearly all abortions in the state. That's according to Planned Parenthood and this organization called Whole Women's Health. But unlike other states' anti-abortion laws, Texas' ban bars state officials from enforcing it. Instead, allows individuals to sue. Anyone who helps someone get an abortion after the limit and seek financial damages of up to $10,000 per defendant. So the government's not involved, but private people are. Interesting. So doctors are not going to want to be involved in those lawsuits. We also have Whole Women's Health very upset about this. We're going to read this response and then we'll jump into your questions. We have Whole Women's Health says, from Whole Women's Health CEO, after this law came into effect, we have staff and doctors providing abortions in Texas still at this hour, and they are all in to provide care up until 11:59 tonight. Our waiting rooms are filled with patients and their loved ones right now, cramming in the abortions before the law goes into effect. The anti-abortion protesters are outside shining lights on the parking lot. We are under surveillance. This is what abortion care looks like, she says. Human right warriors. We are so proud of the team. No matter what the courts say, you are good and right and strong and beautiful. We owe you all so much. If you are eager to help donate, we provide abortion out of love and compassion for Texans. We believe in our patients and their futures. We are proud to be Texas abortion providers. No law that will ever take that away from us. Abortion care in Texas is a lot different now. There's a lot left in the air, so much work to do, but know this, we are not going anywhere. That's from Whole Women's Health. So they're going to continue to fight on and I guess continue their proud abortions. So that's good. Let's take a look at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and see if we've got some questions on this very provocative topic. We have a few coming in. Looks like we have Robute. Oh, wait, no, that was... Yes, Davis Park says, Thomas, Alito, and Barrett have all been extremely critical of Roe. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh don't seem committed either way. Is the decision any indication of where Gorsuch and Kavanaugh stand? Because what would that make it? Let's see. Yeah, because if they were with the liberals, right? That would make it a 5-4, but they're not going to be with the liberals. I think that Roe versus Wade will probably be revisited given the balance of this court. So I think that, yes, you could read into this opinion that we'll see some changes on it. I think that's a fair analysis. We have Robute. That was on the last segment. Sorry, Robute. News Now Wyoming says that it will be interesting to see if this angers the Democrats enough to remove the filibuster to then make way to pack the court before they lose both houses in 2022. I still don't see them removing the filibuster because they know it will hurt them more in the long run, but we will see. Yeah, it's a good question, News Now. It's hard to speculate, but we can do that anyways. I think that the Democrats are probably starting to realize that a lot of their runway is running out quickly because of what we saw in Afghanistan. The numbers are changing dramatically. The idea that they win in 2022, I think, is gone. So the balance of power, the dynamic is going to shift in 2022, I would guess. So what do they have to lose? Why wouldn't they try to get it all in right now? We have Home Cooking Music, AZ, says angry Democrats are threatening to leave Texas over this bill. That'd be great. Let's do Arizona next. I'd love that. Yeah. Go back to California. Go back to Washington. Get out of here. Monster One says, funny how the right to choose doesn't apply to vaccines. It is funny. The left tries to suggest some kind of hypocrisy on the right. Every abortion leads to the murder of someone. Not getting the vaccine doesn't equate to the death sentence. You can't compare something that always leads to a death every time to something that might lead to death a small percent of the time. That's from Monster One. Well, and their response to that, of course, is that, well, a fetus is not a life, they say. How can it be murder? If it's just a clump of cells, is what they say. So that's where the debate comes down to. And we're going to see what the Supreme Court has to say about it. We've got a few others here. From Radice says, I am a retired L&D nurse. I have a picture of me holding a 25-week-old baby's hand. Yes, my nails were done. That baby went home. I don't know anything about that baby now. I believe giving the gift of life is the best gift anyone can receive. Thank you for that, Radice. What a great comment. It's a beautiful thing. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. All right, we have Want to Know says, when is there a soul? It's a good question. It's a deep question, Want to Know. Do you automatically get one? Can you lose it? News Now says, one huge actual constitutional issue with the law I see now that we read what the doctors have to do is it is compelling speech. I can see it getting tossed for that, if for no other reason. The Supreme Court has been very clear on compelling speech. I see. News Now Wyoming, interesting take. I'll have to think about that one. Good perspective. John Halgren says, woo, what a heavy and sad topic. The law needs to look at a life on both ends, birth and death, with the same definition, brain activity. Isn't that what makes it different from any other animal or higher function? Interesting, John. Yeah, brain activity. Brain activity is a good concept. I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time kicking around the abortion issue. We're obviously wading into it. So I'm going to have to bone up on my abortion analysis, aren't I? Thank you, John. We have Federal Unemployment Tax Act says, really? Women have some responsibility. If you don't want to have children, don't have sex without contraception. It's better for your health, cheaper, and less stress for yourself. That's from the Federal Unemployment Tax Act, which is a good comment from that. Thank you, Federal Unemployment Tax Act. We have NY Renal MD says, Planned Parenthood flies these abortionists all over the country. Meanwhile, when there is a problem, they rarely, if ever, take care of the aftermath. These women are abandoned. The doctors providing the abortions should be mandated to be on staff with a local hospital near the facility. That's from the good doctor, the renal MD in the house. Thank you, doctor. Appreciate that. We have another one from Thunder. Says the Dems can pay women to go to states to get their abortions. Maybe the abortion clinics in Texas can now offer contraception and educate the dummies who keep getting pregnant 4, 5, 6 times and get abortions every time. More contraception now than ever before and tons more abortions every year. What gives? How irresponsible and stupid are women getting? Oh, that was a hell of a spicy comment, Thunder 7. Thank you for allowing me to read that. That was a good one. Let's see if I can answer any of that. Look, yeah, I have seen, look, there's a debate about this topic, right? Are some women using the abortion procedures like Skittles, like a drive-through lane? I don't know. Probably. And are there some situations that are really horrific and traumatic, and maybe you can sort of justify it in that case? It's a very complex spectrum. And so it's going to be so fun dissecting these issues and just, going at each other at this. We've got, I'm not gas says, how dare Texas make it more difficult to kill babies? Baby killing is my right. Oh, it's good stuff. Greg Murat says, hey, Rob, maybe a bit off topic, but several studies show that abortion reduces the overall crime rate. As a conservative, I find it hard to find an opposition to this facet. What are your thoughts on it? Is there a rebuttal to it? Well, look, that is a very, very complicated question. So I'm going to punt on that one, Greg Murat. I think that the easy answer on that is to get baited into making it about, not even going to say it. Thank you for it, Greg. We have another one here that's coming in from Hand of Nod. Said, what is the human cost to America since the proliferation of abortion beginning in the eugenics fanaticism in the early 1900s? Hand of Nod. It's a great question, right? And demographics are a very important concept to be having. There's a guy by the name of Peter Zeihan. Very interesting presentation he gives about global demographics and about the changing demographics. It's on YouTube. It's called the Zeihan, Peter Zeihan. Look him up, Zeihan. Very good presentation he gave in, I think, 2019, about global demographics and about, well, why are the Europeans just importing all people from all over the world into their country? Well, their demographics are off. Maybe the United States is doing the same thing. Why is the United States importing huge swaths of people into the country? Why is that? Well, demographics might be problematic. And so if you take a look at all of the abortions that happened, you take a look at all of those potential human beings that could be around, right? The world would be a very different place. It might be a safer, more stable place if we had a more coherent culture of people who are raising their kids appropriately and integrating them into society, rather than having sort of a very chaotic world filled with illegal immigration, all sorts of global problems. So yeah, I think there's a good concept there from Hand of Nod telling us that there's a very important concept called a social fabric. And when you systematically abort a significant portion of your population, yeah, that social fabric is going to be impacted. Good concept. Jeremy Matrita says, Rob, can you clarify, assuming a doctor carries out an abortion after the 6 weeks, who is allowed to file suit? Who do they sue? What are the potential consequences? So it's a private cause of action from a private party to sue the doctor. They're creating a private cause of action. It's a little bit different than if the government were taking action. It's somebody who's saying, look. So think about it this way. Woman goes in to get an abortion. Husband or one night stand doesn't want that to happen, and she goes in 8 weeks after she finds out she's pregnant. She wants an abortion 8 weeks. The baby already has a heartbeat. She goes in, she gets an abortion. That man who is involved says, what did you do? Okay, well, that was illegal, and now I'm going to sue you. Sues them for monetary damages. I think the cause of action created the right for up to $10,000 per defendant. So now that person just sues, and that's it, right? No criminal consequences, but that doctor then has to pay out if they lose the claim. From what I take there. We have Ghost Gunner says, how long do people need to make a decision about murdering their child? The longer they allow a pregnancy to continue, the more cruel it is for the unborn child. Such a disgusting practice. I honestly can't believe they put it under healthcare. The only thing that is remotely redeeming is it's one less kid raised to be a liberal. Oh, these comments are ruthless. I love it. We have another one from Smiley Face says, when is there a soul? Never, if you're a Democrat. Da-dun, from Smiley Face. Thank you for that. We have Vienticus Prime says, yay, this is a topic where I get to anger everyone. Yeah, I love the abortion topics because everything you say is going to anger somebody. Here are my thoughts. The first and foremost right of any sentient self-actualizing being is the determination of its own participation in the struggle to survive. There are almost 8 billion of us mouth breathers on this planet. I don't know about you. I could do without the majority of people. Why do I want another? How much is a creation of an individual now worth in the speculative future? Do people consider the anachronistic cost? Is it just me, or do all the stupid people breed like crazy and the intelligent people breed rarely? Should I reference Idiocracy again? I don't want to have the final say on you doing you. That's from Vienticus Prime. Very good points there, Vienticus Prime. There are a lot of mouth breathers. I talk about that a lot, right? Breathing through your nose is very important. There's a great book by James Nestor called Breathe. Got to breathe through your nose, because if you breathe through your mouth, you're not using all of the mechanisms that are in your head. You got a whole nose and a lot of stuff in the middle of your skull. Got to use it. Breathe through your nose. Stop mouth breathing. Maybe if there were less mouth breathers, Vienticus Prime would change his opinion. It's a great comment. A lot of good points there. Thank you, Vienticus. I'm not mad at you. I'm not angered. We have Tweak says, haha, guess who brought you all this drama? Here's a clue. RFSU, founded 1933. There's a pioneering Swedish organization working in the field of sexual and reproductive health and rights, SRHR. RFSU plays a leading role in shaping the political agenda on gender equality, as well as SRHR in Sweden and internationally. The International Planned Parenthood Federation was founded by RFSU and other actors, and it remains IPPF Swedish Members Association. That's from Tweak. So I have to look up RFSU. I've not heard of that. Let's see, Fighting for Body Right. Yeah, looks like it's a Swedish organization for sexuality education. Interesting. Yeah, thanks for that, Tweak. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in the world. A lot of these private forums and people working together, colluding to take control. We have Morning After Pill says, if there is an oopsie or a rape, there's a pill to take care of that before the fetus grows. It's freely available, the Morning After Pill. It's a good point. Monster One says, funny how it's just a clump of cells until a pregnant woman gets killed, then it's double murder. Yeah, right. Definitions change very frequently, and that is true. That is often true in many states. 503 Unlimited says, not that I agree with abortions. However, if abortions are allowed, then men shouldn't be held liable to pay child support. Her body, her choice means she's 100% liable. People sign off. No, I wanted to abort that child. She says, I want to keep the child, and they just divest their interests. Interesting perspective there, 503. We have Robute says, why am I not surprised that Democrats support abortion? Remember the time they were performing eugenics on black people resulted in 70 million black babies being aborted? Also, Planned Parenthood were placed in black neighborhoods. Seems like someone was racist. Wasn't Bill Gates the father of Planned Parenthood? Father part of Planned Parenthood? Yeah, I don't know about that. But I think I remember reading something about that. From Robute. Thank you. We have a couple more, and we got some serious super chats coming in as well. Thank you. We're going to get to those next. We got Vienticus Prime says, how close is Texas to allowing this death by 1,000 cuts of basically anyone being a prosecutor to what happened with the federal government, allowing the lawyers from Chevron to prosecute Steve Donziger? So I see. So, Vienticus, I'm not sure if doctors would still be willing to do that, right? Because of that liability. So I think really what the law is intending to do, it's to disincentivize it to such a point that people just don't offer abortions anymore, so that you won't see a ton of lawsuits because nobody will be offering it. And those that do will probably charge a premium, and because they have more work to do now, they've got more compliance and regulations that they have to follow. And so it's going to put a bottleneck on it. I don't think there's any question about that. Let's see what came in over from YouTube. Several here. We had one from Mr. Ted Offensive on the last segment. Let's get this one. It says, I was there on January 6th with what just happened in Afghanistan. This is a joke. I cannot believe this is being investigated. That was on the last segment. If you missed that, we talked about January 6th, and Bennie Thompson, the congressperson, is going after all the congresspeople's private cell phone records. So that's fun. That was from Mr. Ted Offensive. Thanks, Ted. Appreciate the support. Eddie Oliver is here. Says, Rob, the pro-choice has every right to relocate to any other state than mine. We've had a large influx of people from California. 950,000 when I last checked. They bring their politics. We don't want them here. That's from Eddie Oliver, who is in the great state of Texas. And same thing's happening here in Arizona. In fact, Arizona went blue officially last time because of all these jerks from California. We have Ryan Berry says, my body, my choice. You were right, Dems. It is your choice to have sex. It boggles my mind how many people don't understand how babies are made. It's a complicated process. That's for sure. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, there is a lot of that. We have another one from Eddie says, and no one is saying they can't get the procedure. They just can't wait to do it or move back to California. We don't want them here, is what Eddie Oliver says. Hey, California, Eddie doesn't want you there. Get the hell out of here. So Eddie Oliver is saying, yeah, right. If you want to go kill your fetus when it's 7 months pregnant, go to a different state. Don't do it here. We have Look2G says, life is miraculous and babies should be defended. It's maddening how many people in our country don't agree with and understand this. Yeah, but it's a big inconvenience, Look2G. It's like a lot of work to like raise a baby. Like crying and changing diapers and feeding it. Ugh. It's a big burden. Honey, let's just go to Planned Parenthood. Okay, you're right. You made a good case. Eddie Oliver says, Rob, I can't stress this enough. Californians unhappy with Texas laws are kindly asked to leave. Sorry for so many messages, just saying how I feel. One more time. Get the hell out of Texas, California. Get out of there. I got you, Eddie. Ryan Berry says, read an article that surveyed 1,000 women at an abortion clinic, and surprise, less than five, a very small percentage of those, 0.05% were rape cases. Why do pro-choicers always use that as an excuse? Because it's the most compelling argument. That's why. Because if you take a woman who's had like 4 abortions and she goes through it like it's a drive-through menu, I'll have the number 2 again today, then that sounds terrible. But if it's a woman who was raped and got pregnant and was in the hospital for 10 months and the whole thing, okay, you go, ugh. Yeah, okay, like you can kind of bend your moral rules a little bit. But otherwise, it just sounds terrible. So that's why they only pick the one that they want you to talk about. It's a nice tactic. That was from Ryan Berry. Another one from Eddie says, hey, if this abortion thing kind of works and the Californians leave, maybe we can reinstate prayer in school too. We just became a Second Amendment state today. I know, Texas is on a roll. And I'm going to be out there in like 2 weeks. I don't know when it's going to be, sometime in September. And I'm just going to soak up some of the redness over there while I'm there. It's going to be enjoyable. Eddie Oliver, another one. Eddie, so generous today, says, Rob, I've monopolized the conversation. How do you think we can get Californians to leave Texas? Well, it's a good question. I think you're probably doing a pretty good job of it there. Just keep going with those laws. While you've got them going, just keep going. Probably the thing that will do it will be something about COVID. All of the COVID hysterics are not going to like not being masked up. So they'll flee, which will be a good thing. And then everybody else can move to Texas. Thank you for that, Eddie. And I appreciate all the love today. Really, really good stuff. Beth Coddington says, hello, Robert and friends. Comment about COVID. Hope it's okay. Of course it is, Beth. And you're very generous as always. Thank you for that. Dr. Drew said that when they talk about overrun hospitals with COVID, those are county hospitals, not private hospitals. That changes things. Just can't trust the information. It's a really great point, Beth. And I've had a lot of issues with this. I think that until we get our informational supply chains figured out in a more robust fashion, we're basically flying blind, right? And our government likes to pretend that they have an idea of what's going on, but they don't really know much of anything. We see this on a daily basis. The CDC comes out about every 2 months and, oops, got to revise that. Oops, got to revise that. Okay. So if that is the case, and if everything is constantly changing, then why do they come out and sell us things like they know everything? They sell us a solution like they can see the full picture, but they can't see the full picture. And we need to know that they can't see the full picture. There's a saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? That's a big problem. If you don't know what you don't know, you're acting without a full range of information. And all of our data, right? Even the COVID death data that people were saying, no, it was a COVID death. No, it wasn't. Or it was a comorbidity death. It was a heart attack plus COVID, right? All of these different permutations of it make the analysis very difficult because the data is so murky and gray. So I completely agree with you, Beth, that I think it's always pertinent to second guess the data that's coming through and just run it through a logical filter. Does it just make sense? Does it fit? we've been through the hospital crisis already before. Remember that? We did this last year. Everything's spiking. People are dying. We're bringing out the morgue refrigerators. Remember all those stories? So if it's happening again, whose fault is that? It's the moron government for not being more prepared. Or it's just scaremongering, right? It's just fear mongering. It's the media putting up the COVID countdown, the COVID calculator every day. More death, more cases, more death, more cases. All day. Because it just gives them more clicks and more numbers. It's ridiculous. Thank you, Beth. Very generous. I agree with you. Don't trust any information. Always think it through for yourself. Vientika says, follow up on my last question. It was in reference to the legal process in general. I'm assuming you're aware of what happened to Steve Donziger. If you didn't pick it up from my... No, I don't know who Steve Donziger is. Let me look him up. See if it rings a bell. American attorney, legal battles with Chevron. Donziger represented over 30,000 farmers, indigenous Ecuadorians in a case. Chevron... No, I don't recall what... I don't know much about him, Vienticus. Let me see if I can pick up your last question. How close happened with the federal government allowing the lawyers from Chevron to prosecute? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I apologize, Vienticus. I'm not familiar with that case. So I have that tab open. I'll have to take a look at that. We have Nadler's dirty diapers. Nadler. Can we abort his dirty diapers? Says, Rob, changing diapers is a lot of work. I now weigh 26 pounds. Change me. Oh, gosh. Can somebody get over to the congressional building? Somebody tweet at Nancy Pelosi and tell her Nadler needs to be changed again. Nancy, go over there. You're stinking up the whole congressional building. It's already stinky as it is. Now Nadler's dirty diapers are all over the place. Ugh. We have the last villain says, with all those babies as a sacrifice, you can do a pretty big spell. Yeah, Witchcraft 101. Maybe we can help take America out of the boiling cauldron of doom. We have Want to Know says, why are people stopping Democrats from getting abortions? They want that choice. Let them. Which is just terrible, but it's also pretty funny. We have Demetrius Parham says, look up the CDC's requirement for what a COVID death is. Extremely loose and inflates the numbers heavily. I'm sure of that. I am sure of that because we saw the stories where they're rolling somebody who's 107 into the hospital. He's got emphysema. He's got asthma. He's had AIDS for 35 years, hepatitis A through F, and he also caught COVID and then drops dead. Oh, dang it, another COVID death. Oh, okay. So we saw those stories every day for 18 months, and we still see those. So that's a lot of good stuff. Thank you for that super chat, Demetrius Parham. I appreciate you being here. Also, great questions from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. My friends, that is it for us on the show today. Let's make sure that we can welcome our new supporters over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Big welcome to Miss Tree of Life, who joined us for the year. Very grateful. Welcome. We have West Pole, who joined up, not the North Pole, not the South Pole, the West Pole is here. Sir Kexalot is in the house. Teresa Simone, give her a look. She's running for different positions. We have Dave 2 is also in the house. Avalon Acres joined up. Timbo 411 and Don M 911 all here. Monster One, JS Row, Grim Nightmare, Chai Web Dev, the Chicago web developer, Action Man, Doc Thunderbone, and Miss Danny 2021 are also here. And we have some new people who signed up the week prior to that. Welcome everybody. Go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you want to join in on the fun, we have a monthly meetup every month in Saturday. I'm still looking for the dates on that, but I'll get those to you soon in September, but it is coming up. It's a lot of fun. We just had one last week, and it's a good time, and we want to make sure that you're there. Eddie Oliver just came in with one final super chat on the show. Let's see what this is. Says, okay, last question, Rob. Is it legal to abort a Californian, like a live, full-grown Californian? Look, I don't know. You know, it's a good question. Maybe the Supreme Court will give us some good news when they decide this issue. Abortions are unconstitutional, or they're illegal, unless you're a Californian. Then you can get aborted. That's Eddie Oliver's new standard. Thank you, Eddie. And one final time, if you're from California and you're living in Texas, get out. Get out. Pack your stuff up. Get the heck out of there. Eddie Oliver doesn't want you there. Neither do I. And while you're at it, get your relatives out of my state too. All right, that is it for us on the show today, my friends. Thanks for being a part of it. It was a fun one, a little bit of levity, going through some very dark, horrific stories. And so thank you for having some fun with us as we get through it. Quick reminder that we're going to be back here, same time and same place tomorrow to do it all again. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida, man. Everybody else have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. And Beth Coddington says, I loved watching you grow on this show, Robert. Yeah, the show is growing tremendously. Thank you, Beth. It's because of you. It's because of your support. It's because of everybody watching over on YouTube, over on Locals. I really do appreciate all of you all. I will see you right back here tomorrow, my friends. Bye-bye.